I have given this topic a lot of thought, and I want to take the time to express my ideas, my information, my thoughts on mindfully creating a independent community. And I want to be very realistic in this video about what I think you're up against and the benefits to being independent from what we collectively call the grid. And there's a lot of reasons why someone may want to be independent from the system, from a dense population center. And it isn't about doomsday prepping. It's very unfortunate that the History Channel, that the mainstream media has gone in this direction. It pollutes the waters. And in a way repels those that might want to be involved in a more natural way of living, self-sufficient way of living. When people see fear being the primary motivation, if they don't live in fear, they're not going to gravitate to that. But living off the grid and living independently, even developing your own independent communities within the grid, this is all the opposite of fear. Here's a number of examples, and I'm just going off the top of my head. I'm doing this video without notes because these are things that I feel strongly and I want to convey my understanding and perspective to you. There are many reasons why someone may want to live independently, and the economy is one. It's usually the primary motivation. Some people can't afford to pay their rent in the city, or they don't believe that the rent that they are paying is worth it anymore. Do you really think that, for something you don't own, that it's worth it to pay $750 a month or $850 or $950? Or I'm sure some of the people watching this video could share with all of us how extreme some of your living costs may be. There are people that have been losing their jobs at an incremental rate, and while it is possible for some people to continue to work in this system, it isn't viable for someone to step down and start working at Walmart, McDonald's, or a gas station if they have mortgage payments on their home. It's just not feasible. The rent's just not worth it. So the economy is a major motivation, along with the increased costs in utilities, water, power, natural gas, fill in the blank right here. Maybe some local tax your broken local government is opposing upon the people in your community. There's so many different reasons why someone may want to live an independent life. If you're concerned about the events in Syria, and if you've been paying attention the last couple of years, you understand that if we strike Syria, it's going to be suicide for the United States. It's going to jeopardize security here in the United States. It's not a mindful way to walk into the future. And we could talk about Libya, we could talk about Egypt, we could talk about many other countries, Yemen, what's been done in Pakistan, Iraq, what they want to do in Iran, what they've done in Somalia. There's a lot of danger that those in power are bringing to this country. So it makes complete sense to safeguard your own freedom and security, especially if you have a family, especially if you have children in the society. There may be some sort of motivating factor that you may have as a protector to protect your tribe, to protect your people, to protect your family, to protect your wife. Another motivating factor could simply be a desire to live in nature and have a more direct connection with that which we choose to call God. When you go out in the desert and you live there for 10 months and you don't have any external stimuli or internet to entertain you, there are your own thoughts. And in those thoughts are memories where you can reflect upon your whole life, and things may get quiet enough to where you see the synchronicities, you see the divine intervention in your life. You see all those times in your lifetime where there's been a force greater than yourself intervening, whether you were aware of it at the time or not. In the silence, there is clarity. And by going into some of these rural areas where the ancients lived, there are energies, there are vortices on this planet where things feel very different. The magnetics are off. You know, some people get very bothered by the heavy winds in the San Luis Valley in spring. I've heard people say it throws the chi off. And yes, it can be a little bit intense when you're being hit by 40-mile-an-hour winds, 50, 60, 70, 80-mile-an-hour winds. Yes, winds get that fast there. My interpretation of the winds, however, is a little different than others. I see winds of change. I see winds of energy. And I see that moment where you're getting blasted by these changes in the wind and intense weather patterns to, in your mind's eye, cleanse your energy, to let go of what was and renew yourself. I mean, there is a fine line between being spiritually fit, a thin line, and mentally ill. This society, this satanic society, can make an unspiritual person so mentally unfit that they will turn on their friends, they will turn on their family, they will turn on their higher self and be a slave to their lower self, which will be lying to them and boosting their ego. Oh, you're so enlightened. Oh, you're so knowledgeable. You care only about yourself and your own dreams and your own career. Oh, you are the collective shifting consciousness, baby. Oh, it's you. Oh, it's you. You step back from that. You step back from a selfish way of life and you embed yourself directly in nature. It has an effect. But it doesn't mean that if you go out in the middle of nowhere that you're going to have that effect if you're drinking cheap alcohol on a regular basis and talking shit about your friends. You see, so there are many, 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 many reasons why someone may want to live off the grid. Maybe it's to grow their hair out. Oh, like I have, even though I've got it in a ponytail. And I am not aware of all the health benefits that I may have received or spiritual benefits, but as I reflect on the 10 months that I spent in the desert, there's always something new that comes to my consciousness that gets me to think about something a little bit differently. And I spent a lot more of my time in gratitude to the earth, to the Great Spirit, and to those that have helped me. Those that have contributed when I really needed the help, the true friends that I have out there, the positive comments, and I work hard to focus on the positivity instead of the negativity, even though the negativity comes in and tries to slap me upside the head to distract me. I always bring myself to a sense of gratitude for the beings of light that are receptive to the information that I'm sharing on this YouTube channel. Another important factor before we move on to practical ways of going about living off the grid. Another very important factor is environmental. You know, on March 11th, 2011, Fukushima was in the news, and there were rumors about a tsunami that potentially, at that time, was expected to hit the Oregon coast, Washington coast, some parts of California, Alaska, and in some areas there were some tsunamis, but they were mostly mild. There were a few things that got damaged along the coastline. A lot of boats got washed up on the shore. A lot of debris has still been coming from Japan. On that day, it's a couple weeks after I left the Portland Preparedness Center, which was an opportunist endeavor that a few older men from Washington State organized as they called me to be a part of their operation. A couple weeks after leaving the PPC, I'm leaving on 3/11. And I planned days before 3/11, before the Fukushima incident, to leave the Portland area with my friend and stay in a cabin in Estacada, which lasted until the summer. I spent a few more months in Portland, then I was out of Portland in late 2011. What kind of, even though we know that radiation can spread throughout the world, but what kind of a safety net did I experience by going directly in the middle of the thick forest? At least 60 to 80 miles away from Portland, and being in a more natural environment, drinking clean water, eating better food, cooking my food, getting exercise, doing more meditation, praying to the Creator. See, all those things are very powerful. And cities today, whether it be from the Fukushima situation, or from the oil spill, or from the chemtrailing, or from the fluoride in the water, which is also an environmental hazard. When you're putting a neurotoxin in the water, it doesn't just affect our IQ and our pineal gland, which is our third eye in the middle of the head. It's very damaging to the environment and to the animals when you're putting fluoride into the water supply. So whether you're concerned about future events, whether you want to find peace of mind through a spiritual experience, whether you're on the shamanic journey and you want to get clear and ground yourself more than you have ever been in your life while living in a dense population center, or whether your interest is in getting away from the environmental risks, the radiation, to be in nature and be in a less polluted environment, or if your motivation is to get away from your parasitic local government, or if your motivation is to get away from a situation where you can't afford to pay your rent, or the rent that they're asking you to pay is not worth it for the money that you're making or not making, or you want to get out of an area where there's greater racial tension, violence, rape, gangs, burglaries, home invasions, etc., etc., etc. There are so many different reasons, that one may want to get off the grid that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with empowerment. Having said all that, prepping this for where we're going now, this is not about fear, this is about empowerment. This is about love of community, independent community. Having said that, the greatest failure of the so-called alternative media, the greatest failure of this so-called patriot movement, the greatest setback that those that say they want to be free, that I see, has been the lack of genuine organization for those of us on the spiritual path, for those of us that do want to restore our country to freedom, for those of us that don't want these endless wars, for those of us that do want to have a more direct connection to God and nature and ourselves and community. The greatest setback, the greatest failure has been our failure to create our own community, to create our own city, to create our own county, to create our own region. You see, when I look at people that are interested in getting really high, when I look at people that are really interested in yoga or martial arts or basketball or football, it's going to be a long list, so get a cup of coffee. In fact, let me get my tea. I can go on and on and on. Sports fans, stamp collectors, Sufis, Gnostics, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, racist rednecks, socialists. Okay, I'm going to stop. What I see out there is a world where there are many unconscious beings on this planet that yet have figured out how to create their own community, that have figured out how to be independent, that have figured out, whether they agree with us or not, how to build a community or gathering of like minds. Look at the Rainbow Family Gathering. For a lot of people, it is a place to get high, to hopefully find someone to get in bed with. To others, it's to develop a sense of family if they didn't have any family. To be able to say welcome home because it feels like home, to feel free to share your food. Some people have good intentions. Some people do not have good intentions that go to the Rainbow Family Gathering and are not awake, but they are able to do it. And what I'm saying is there are examples that we see where people have created their own independent societies, independent communities, and you can do it or be a part of something without it being structured like a cult. This is very, very important because this term cult gets thrown around a lot anytime someone wants to break free and develop their own thing with their friends. So why is it that those of us that are aware of the New World Order, why is it that there are those of us that are aware of the environmental hazards, that are aware of where the economy is going, that are aware that we have a greater spiritual potential to us, why do we have an issue coming together with like minds? And when I say like minds, I'm encompassing a lot of things, not just being aware of problems, but being aware of our need to come together out of love. Because there's a lot of people in the conspiracy research community that don't know anything about love, that don't know anything but fear.